and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Second scripture in Psalm 147 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And the third scripture is Psalm 127. It says, Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchmen stay awake in vain. And I'm reading these scriptures against the backdrop of the tragic events of last week. And I wanted to serve as a moment of introspection, both individually, nationally. And when I saw what happened last week, it was shocking but not surprising. When I say it's shocking but not surprising, when you understand the dynamics of what's happening in the country over a period of time, you begin to realize that some of these things are inevitable unless changes happen. Essentially, what happened last week is the result of something I call the game. The game has been with us forever. Way back in the day, I understood the game because I was in the game. And what happened is that the players changed and tactics changed, but it's the same game. And sometimes people look at young people with guns and they say, well, why are these people having guns? But when you're in the game, a gun is not an accessory, it's an essential item. And unless a man's heart is changed, he's going to default to what he needs to conduct his business or protect himself. So in that way, it's not surprising. What I also realized from being on both sides is that we are suffering currently from a cultural phenomenon. We started out where these things were periphery, but over time, and because I've been around and still involved in a lot of things and know a lot of things, the truth of the matter is we are suffering from a cultural phenomenon, something that has become a part of our culture. Young men growing up, they are graduating into that culture, and it's something that we have to be aware of. And one of the things that I realized from back in the day, I personally worked with a lot of gang members. I mean, when I returned home from school, one of the first things that I did when I returned home from college is I went into local schools and I said to the principals, the guidance counselors, I said, give me all of the gang members. I sat down, worked with those guys, and a number of them today are pastors, businessmen, leaders. But what I noticed in the process is that we have a systemic issue. Several of the guys that I work with, one guy, he didn't know who his father was. His mother was a crack addict. I remember two Haitian guys. One of the guys was a gang leader. And when he shared with me his story, it was just alarming. He said, look, when I was 12 or 13 years old, it was just me and my brother and my parents. My parents were Haitian. And they just left and went to Miami, never said a word, never looked back. So these guys were left on their own. So we have a cultural issue. And the thing about it is that there's no magic wand where we could say we're going to do this and solve it. You can't say, well, let's get all the guns off the streets and everything is solved. The truth of the matter is that if it's not collective, it won't be effective. When I say collective, if all of us look inside, say, what can we do? How can we play a part? If we don't look at it from that perspective, then, I can't have a great expectation of anything. And it's not going to be easy. But there are things that are possible because I've seen the results. I could give you a long list of names and addresses of young men, who've been able to make a turnaround because someone intervened. And so I think we have to refocus on things that build lives, whether it's community, whether it's church, whether it's sport, whatever it is. We have to look at this moment and say, what can we do? What can I do? Because sometimes we tend to look and say, what can they do? Not what can I do? But we have to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing? If you are not going, are you supporting those who go? Or are you giving lip service? A lot of people say, well, that's great. I remember, when I was working with gang members, people would come to me, man, it's a great job. They never offer, they never say, well, if the program needs funding, they just say, great. And they don't realize that, I'm risking my life. There are times when I mediated situations, where people have guns and contemplating action. And there I am in the middle. I mean, some situations just incredible. But I think we have to make sure that we all look inside. When we see things like this happen, it becomes a seminal moment. We say, I'm going to do something. We are going to do something. And every avenue is necessary. The police have to do their work. The community has to do their work. The church has to do their work. And you can't point a finger at one group and say, well, y'all ain't doing it, we're doing it. The truth of the matter is that everyone is falling down if this is our situation. So everyone has to stand up. So I just want to encourage you today to remember that it's hard, but it's possible. I want to close with a story, and some of you may have heard this story before, but there were these two young men on the beach in California, and they were walking along the shore, and as they walked along the shore, they saw that the tide had receded, and it had left thousands and thousands and thousands of starfish, and the starfish couldn't get back in the water. And as they were walking, one guy said to the other, he said, man, this is a tragedy, So they're going to die. And he said, well, there's nothing that we can do. It's too many of them. So the second guy, he walked up to one of the starfish and he said, you know what, this one isn't going to die. He went, threw it in the water. Then he picked up another one and he said, this one isn't going to die either. And I think that's how we have to look at it. We have to save who we can and realize that some people are not going to make it, but there are things within our power that we can do. Amen? Amen. Let's bow our heads together. Father God, we just thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for our country. We know the challenges that we face, but we know that we've been given talents, gifts, abilities. Father, help us all to be introspective today and determine what we will do to save the starfish. We thank you for the deliberations today, and we pray that everything as usual would be done in decency and in order as an example to our nation. And we pray that our proceedings would have a favorable outcome. In Jesus' name. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Renzo Rose, Albert Johnson, Philip Davis, Vaughn Miller, Patricia Parker Edson, Aaron Lewis, Carlton Bolag, James Aubrey, Travis Robinson, Adrian Gibson, Donald Saunders, Frederick McElpine, Hank Johnson, Martin, Michael Hook, Miriam Repley Manuel, Lee Shipman, Ruben Rami, Ricky Mackey, Shandon Cartwright, Chanel Ferguson, Lennis Hannah Martin, Pikewell Forbes, Chester.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, just a brief report from a working group meeting that was attended by a delegation from the Bahamas. It was a virtual meeting by the Parliamentary on Monday, dealing with openness in Parliament. The Speaker, the President of the Senate, and the Vice President of the Senate represented the Bahamas at that meeting. And that meeting was attended by the speakers from a number of countries, including Belize, Jamaica, Antigua, the Bahamas, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Canada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago. The major focus of the meeting was openness in the legislative branches of government, transparency, accountability, oversight, citizen participation, openness and freedom of information, gender equality, and the social media impact on the legislative branch of government. And honorable members, I have a further invitation from Parliamentary for another meeting on the 7th of May. For those persons who may be interested in attending in an observer status, you can notify the clerk and present the clerk with your emails so that he can supply those emails to the organizers. That meeting is Friday, May 7th, beginning at 10 a.m. And that meeting will be dealing with access to public information for the Parliament of the Americas and the Caribbean. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: Emergency Powers COVID-19 Pandemic Risk Management Number 4 Amendment Number 11 Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document to lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Bahamas Registered Stock Directions 2020, Bahamas Registered Stock Number 15, 2023, 2025, 2027, 2030, 2040, and 2050.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document to lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Bahamas Registered Stock Direction 2021, Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2024, 2026, 2028, 2041, and 2051.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Farmers Registered Stock Direction 2021, Farmers Registered Stock number 3, 2024, 2026, 2028, 2041, and 2051.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Farmers Registered Stock Directions 2021, Farmers Registered Stock 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member for would be late because he's engaged in speaking engagement, and therefore I would lay documents for him. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: Industrial Encouragement Approved Product Blue Terra Limited Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Industries Encouragement Approved Manufacturer Blue Terra Limited Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. To recognize the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Price Control General Amendments Number 4, Regulations 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mount Moriah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioners Policing Plan 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for North Harbour Coast.
Mr. Speaker, in proxy to the Minister of Tourism, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: A, the Airport Authority audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2015, and B, the Airport Authority audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2016.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, there are no further laying of documents.
Mr. Clark, I wish to lay on the table the invitation from Parliamentary for the 7th of May, inviting members to participate in their webinar on access to public information for Parliament of the Americas and the Caribbean. Order that the document do lie on the table. Statements and communications by ministers. The chair recognizes Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, before I start, in medicine, a simple rule of thumb that has always prevailed is that you cannot just treat symptoms. You must try to find cause and treat the cause. Because if you do not treat the cause, do it repeatedly, you treating symptoms. Speaker, I go through my communication. I think we have identified the cause. We cannot continue to treat symptoms. So I can only say that in identifying the cause, enforcement must be increased, and enforcement must be done, and the orders that were placed must be adhered to. Once these are done, Mr. Speaker, then we would be able to counter the disease. Mr. Speaker, the government of the Bahamas has continued to carefully monitor the health data of the COVID-19 pandemic. And yesterday, Dr. Mercelin Dahl Regis, Special Health Advisor to the Prime Minister and Chair of the National COVID-19 Vaccine Consultative Committee, and other medical officials, gave a press conference and presentation on the current state of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the Bahamas. Dr. Dahl Regis is one of the leading experts in the Americas in her field. She is internationally recognized for her many decades of service and work in public health. The Bahamas is most fortunate, Mr. Speaker, to have such an expertise, to have her expertise and guidance here with us. The government and the Bahamian people are pleased to have her wise counsel. I commend her remarks, Mr. Speaker, and the data she offered to the nation. It is most unfortunate that some individuals seem not to understand or appreciate medical science and data. It is quite possible that after yesterday's press conference, that some may once again publicly ask for the very science and data that the medical officials just put out in detail, including through various slides and graphs. Some individuals, Mr. Speaker, have the odd habit of asking, where's the science? Right after the medical experts present the science to the whole country. And throughout the pandemic, we have carried the briefings of the science by the medical team on TV and via social media. The data on cases is sent out daily. The data and information are made public, Mr. Speaker, for all to see. And Mr. Speaker, I wish to recall a number of critical areas from yesterday's presentation. Dr. Dalrymple noted that, quote, we are in a race against time and that the pandemic is not over. COVID-19 is continuously presenting new challenges. At this time, vaccinations alone will not get us out of this pandemic. We must simultaneously address the increase in cases, the identification of resistant strains, and adhere to the public health measures if we are to win this race and return to a sense of normalcy. Dr. Regis further went on, as we seek to increase access to COVID-19 vaccine and the number of vaccinations administered, we have also been observing an increase in some numbers on a daily basis over the last 2 weeks. New infections are being driven by international travel and a relaxed adherence to the health measures. I want to repeat that. New infections are being driven by international travel and a relaxed adherence to the health measures. The emergence of variant strains of COVID-19 is of significant concern. New strains have been identified from the United Kingdom, Brazil, South Africa, and most recently, India. And these variants spread more easily and are infecting younger age groups. The cases may be more severe. Mr. Speaker, our region of the Americas is having particular difficulties. An active emergency exists in South America, with numerous countries battling extreme conditions. There are surges in the Caribbean and increased cases and hospitalizations in parts of North America. Beyond the Americas, in Europe, numerous countries are still under heavy restrictions. Some are battling variant-driven upswings that began months ago. And new surges are also occurring in some parts of Southeast Asia. The broad global uptick and increase in cases is affecting the Bahamas. Analysis, Mr. Speaker, is underway to give us more information as to their role in our current circumstances. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Dalrymple just reported, quote, we have been actively monitoring genomic testing from the 13th of March to the 17th of April. The results are reported by the National Reference Lab are showing evidence of an increasing number of genomic deletions, and this is indicative of variant strains. He noted that we must return to heightened surveillance and contact tracing if we are going to win this race in the shortest period of time, and that we have to accelerate the uptake in vaccines. To help control the surge in new cases, we must test, isolate, trace, treat, and vaccinate. All cases and contacts of cases must be identified to bring the spread of COVID-19 under control. As as part of the contact tracing process, private lab reporting requirements are also being enforced to ensure that information reaches health officials in a complete, accurate, timely manner. And on to say, at the same time, we are moving to accelerate the vaccination program throughout the Bahamas. Speaker, I want the Bahamas to realize that we are truly in a race to the finish line with this virus. And whoever reaches the finish line first is victorious. I try to put it in simple language, Mr. Speaker. That is, the virus and the vaccine, us, at a 100-meter race. The virus is occupying lane number 3, and the vaccine is occupying lane number 4. The government will do all it can to obtain the vaccines. The government will do all it can to ensure proper rollout, implementation, and access to the vaccine by its populace. That's lane number 4. The vaccine, so the government will continue to push the vaccine to and the people to the finish line ahead of the virus in lane number 3. But the government does not control lane number 3, Mr. Speaker. The people control lane number 3. It's our behavior. The partying, our breaking of laws and orders, our disregard for curfews, our breaking of orders on beaches, etc. These type of behavior, Mr. Speaker, will facilitate the vaccine, the virus in lane number 3 to reach the finish line before we do the vaccine. So, Mr. Speaker, it is essential for the people to make sacrifices and slow down the virus in lane number 3. Our sacrifice will lead to greater prosperity and a better outcome and a better Bahamas tomorrow. As you read throughout world literature, the Bahamas is considered the most favored destination at this time. We are ready to take off, but we must adhere to regulations. Just recently, U.S. travel advisory put placed us level number 4, along with 80% of the world of 140 countries. We've been that road before, Mr. Speaker, and we have overcome. We know what to do, we have done it, and we will do it again. But I want people to realize that the Bahamas is not just New Providence. We are an archipelago of nations. Jamaica is one island, Barbados is one island, Grenada is one island. We are an archipelago of nations. If you look at Inagua, COVID-19 infection is 0. If you look at Auckland, 0. Crooked Island, 0. Long Key, 0. Long Island, 0. Andres, occasionally 1. Cat Island, 0. San Salvador, 0. Rum Key, 0. Mr. Speaker, our problem are confined basically to New Providence and Grand Bahama. So I say, let us win this race, Lane 4, so that we can prepare for independence ceremony, and we can likewise prepare for the greatest cultural event that is held here in the Bahamas, Junkanoo, Christmas time. Mr. Speaker, I said all that so that the world would recognize that as an archipelago of nations, most of our islands are not affected with COVID. Mr. Speaker, I met with representatives of the testing laboratories yesterday morning, and I reminded them of the requirement to submit COVID-19 test results to the Ministry of Health's surveillance team. I also reminded them, Mr. Speaker, of the fine penalty for not submitting the test results as required. I reminded them that the fine for such an event was $20,000. The requirement to submit data will be tightened for the RT-PCR test results being submitted within 24 hours. There will be stiffer penalties for the failure to abide by this requirement. And I had informed the lab as to what those penalties would be. Because at this time I was not informed the nation as to those penalties. However, the labs are well aware of the extent of the penalty if they not report test results to the appropriate authority so that they could be managed appropriately within 24 hours. This is a part of our heightened surveillance strategy to combat the increase in cases. Mr. Speaker, I also note that the enforcement of emergency orders will also be increased and enhanced. Members of the public are asked, please comply. I'm asking businesses that are able to do so to have their employees work from home where possible to decrease the spread of COVID-19. And I note, Mr. Speaker, that this is a voluntary request. Mr. Speaker, I wish to note a number of additional measures we are taking. Effective, we have been monitoring Abaco and have analyzed the data and the situation in Abaco. Effective immediately, the daily curfew on mainland Abaco will be removed from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and replaced by 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Travelers within the Bahamas who have been fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus will be exempted from COVID-19 test requirements that are currently in place when traveling to New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Exuma, and Lutra. These travelers, Mr. Speaker, will be exempted immediately after full vaccination. The Speaker, what we're saying is that once individuals within our shores all of us, as well as those coming visiting, once they have received the second dose vaccine, or they have met the vaccination requirements, they do not need any further testing to move about through our Bahama land. Therefore, I encourage individuals to receive the vaccine as quickly as possible. I am aware of CDC's regulations, Mr. Speaker. CDC states that there must be a 2 weeks delay post the second vaccination shot. However, within the Bahamas, we recognize the amount, the antibody level, and the immunity. Therefore, that 2 week requirement is not necessary. Once you receive the second dose, you can move Lutra, any island, any province, any island, Grand Bahamas, any island, without any additional form of testing, and you can move about. However, you must still adhere to the mitigation protocols in terms of social distancing, mask wearing, sanitization, etc. Effective the 1st of May, this is important for tourism, so as to give them adequate time to put out their necessary warnings and alerts. Effective 1st of May, those traveling to the Bahamas from outside of the country will be exempted from a COVID-19 test if they are fully vaccinated and have passed the 2 week immunity period. Proof of full vaccination will be required. To be clear, Mr. Speaker, if an individual is not fully vaccinated, that individual will still be required to provide a negative COVID-19 test. Their testing requirements are in place. Mr. Speaker, this would greatly assist our economy, and it would also assist in reducing the number of infections. Once individuals are fully vaccinated, individuals can participate in a closed environment. Once all within the closed environment are fully vaccinated, then the mask would not be necessary, and they can participate within that environment. That is once all are vaccinated. Speaker, that means that indoor dining can resume for those individuals who are completely vaccinated. It also means, Mr. Speaker, from a cultural perspective, that those like myself who participate in Junkanoo, once we are all vaccinated, we can work within the Junkanoo shops among us all vaccinated individuals. Mr. Speaker, this is important because it allows within an enclosed restaurant or wedding facility, once all are vaccinated, it also means that the cultural events that we had yesterday, where individuals within restaurants and weddings would have Junkanoo rushing through the environment that can occur once all, including the Junkanooers, are vaccinated. And therefore, we can commence some form of normal life. But Mr. Speaker, most important as we move forward, enforcement must be adhered to. I recognize excellent work the police and COVID ambassadors were doing. And I recognize that many of them are probably burnt out, but I ask them to just provide us with that extra burst of energy for the next 2 weeks so that we can enforce our laws, our orders, especially with all the events that are occurring around our island. Mr. Speaker, my government has been working day and night to get vaccines to the Bahamas. And thus far, we have received 20,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine as a gift from the government of India, along with 33,600 from the COVAX facility. The Pan American Health Organization has informed Bahamas that we will receive the second tranche of AstraZeneca vaccine through the COVAX facility before the end of May. And this tranche will consist of 33,000 doses. That leaves the remaining 34,200 doses to be received from the COVAX facility. Thus far, we have administered approximately 22,000 doses of the vaccine. Vaccines are being administered on the islands of New Providence, Grand Bahama, Lutra, and Abaco. Dr. Dalricus yesterday set out the COVID-19 vaccine consultative committee schedule for the expansion of vaccinations across our island chain. Health and logistics teams were deployed yesterday to start reconnaissance visits in preparation for the start of vaccinations on the islands during the week of April 26th. The health team will be supported by local government officials, health administrators, and community leaders. The team will prepare vaccination sites, secure necessary supplies, and conduct training for online platforms. As Dr. Dahl Regis added, this is ambitious, but we hope it will be completed essentially over a several-day period. In our family islands, to speak, the vaccine will be administered to all residents 18 years and older with a Bahamas government-issued ID. And the proposed schedule announced yesterday is as follows. Monday, April 26th, Andres, Mayaguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Auckland, Long Key, North, Central and South Andres, Ragged Island, and mainland Exuma. Tuesday, 27th of April, Berry Islands, Great Harbor Key, Cat Island, San Salvador and Long Island, Exuma Keys, and Rum Keys. On Wednesday, April 28th, North, Central, and South Ibutra, and Friday, April 30th, Bimini. The location of vaccination sites and the days and times for each island will be published on opm.gov.es. That information will be widely circulated via other platforms. The family island locations will have online and on-site appointments. We encourage Family Islanders to make their appointments online at vax.gov.bs. Those who need help should ask a family member or a friend for assistance. Vaccinations, Mr. Speaker, are key to us getting out of this pandemic. In order to get back to normal, in order for our economy to fully open up, we need each Bahamian and resident to come forward, be vaccinated when eligible. Vaccines will help to prevent more sickness and deaths. We need our people to come forward quickly. Israel, Mr. Speaker, is the world's leader in vaccination. Their good work has led to a remarkable drop in cases. Their country is now responsibly and gradually opening up. If we get a large number of Bahamians vaccinated, we too could put the emergency phase of the pandemic behind us. I ask Bahamians to get their vaccination when it is their time and to encourage friends and family to do the same. Once the Family Islands are completed, our full resources will be concentrated on new progress. And Speaker, that is important. I know that there have been many complaining about having to have PCR tests done, in some cases at astronomical cost. But irrespective, to have PCR done. The Speaker, that was necessary to prevent infection spreading to our family island. I spend a lot of time, Mr. Speaker, reading war books, how you fight war and battles. And one thing I've learned, which was common among all the authors, and we are at war. We are at war with the COVID virus. What I've learned from all the authors is that in order to win a battle, you should try to concentrate your army and your resources in one battlefront. If you find yourself in 6, 7 different battlefronts, you will lose the war. And that was why, Mr. Speaker, we ensured that we protected our family island. It was essential that the spread of the virus did not extend into our family islands, because we would have found ourselves fighting 7 or 8 battlefronts, and we would have lost the war. We would have been in a worse situation than we are today. Had that happened, Mr. Speaker, just to give an example, just to transport a patient from the family island here to New Providence, excluding the Air Force, just the port to transport those individuals, $10,000, one usage. When you add up all the other costs and amenities, to transport one will run you as high as $25,000. Can you imagine if we had not aggressively protected our family island? We have numbers of individuals coming in, being transported to New Providence, the cost. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, many of our family islanders are elderly. We would have had a high death rate. although it may have been hard in terms of curfew quiet, but it was essential to protect the family island. And the Speaker urged them, as the vaccine introduced into their respective islands, I urge them to participate so as we can continue to protect our citizens within the family island. Mr. Speaker, the measures I announced are only part of our necessary collective response. We are one Bahamian team in this fight. To address the increase in cases, we need every Bahamian and resident to fully practice all the public health measures. Throughout this pandemic, my government and I have crafted policy with our public health experts. We have worked to save lives and livelihoods. We only tighten restrictions via emergency powers when it is necessary. When conditions improve, we loosen them. If we did not have the emergency powers, there would be chaos, more sickness, and more death. Those who oppose the emergency orders have taken a historically reckless position. In addressing this pandemic, we also use an island-by-island approach. For example, measures needed in New Providence may not be needed on Crooked Island or Mayaguana or Long Island. Speaker, I want to repeat again, the hard war, once we protect our family island, we can fight our enemy where our ammunition is mostly stopped here in New Providence. We do not imposing restrictions, Mr. Speaker. We know the pandemic has had a great impact on people's finances and mental state. We only do so when they are necessary and only for the time required. The Speaker was also noted at yesterday's press conference. Ministry of Health officials and the Consultative Committee will continue to provide regular updates on the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. We encourage the public to use the Ministry of Health and Office of Prime Minister's official website, social media platforms, and credible news sources to keep up to date, properly informed about the COVID-19 vaccine. Mr. Speaker, as I end my communication, I wish to offer the advice and words of Dr. Barrow Regis, who stressed, I quote, "We are making progress, but our work is far from over. To help slow the spread of COVID-19 vaccine, we must redouble our efforts. That is, to help slow the spread of COVID-19, we must redouble our efforts. This is no time to relax. We must continue to practice the public health measures. We must continue to avoid large gatherings. We must abide by the emergency orders. Wear our masks properly over our nose and our mouth. Keep a distance of 6 feet from others. When you are out, wash or sanitize your hands regularly. And when you are eligible, get vaccinated. The sooner we get vaccinated, the sooner we can open our economy. The sooner we get vaccinated, the sooner we can get back to work. Mr. Speaker, These times require perseverance. These times require making decisions based on what is required to protect our people. We are trained, Mr. Speaker, as doctors to tell our patients the truth as well as to offer hope. This is what has guided me for 40 years as a doctor and what has guided me during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, I will always be and remain a doctor. And as a medical doctor, I have continued to monitor the health data and the science. As Prime Minister, I continue to utilize such vital data in my government's decision-making process. As I have said before, let us continue to do our part to defeat this pandemic. In this spirit, may I invite those who wish to volunteer to help in vaccination program to do so. You may sign up to volunteer at covax@bahamas.gov.us. I repeat that, covax@bahamas.gov.us. Speaker, again, for us to conquer this virus, it's all about enforcement, and enforcement. That's why I ask again, police and COVID ambassadors, no stretch or tired. But I ask for your energy over the next 2 weeks to even increase further than before. So as we can enforce. I want to also pay particular attention, especially to areas around the campus point area, where many residents continue to complain not only of noise pollution, but the hundreds and hundreds of people who are gathered outside their residence, preventing them from sleeping or any form of rest. The Speaker, may God continue to bless and guide our Bahamas. Before I thank you and the Bahamian people, I only want to note and the nation to hear a clarification. A week ago in Parliament, I stated that homes in industrial gardens were being bought for $182,000 or more. When we came in government, we felt that those individuals were overpriced and were charged more than they should have. And therefore, individuals who, the last few homes that were left, individuals who were purchasing those homes, we had dropped the fee to $140,000, which we thought were reasonable. Remember, an individual whom I have great respect for and admiration. He knows me, I would not like to lose that respect. He would not like me to lose that respect. He would not like it. He's reporting to people in industrial that I said we would reduce their fee or their purchase price from the 180 or 200 or 220,000 that they paid, 140. I said no such thing. I said the people were overcharged. I asked them to be fair. But God said, don't make me an enemy. Thank you very much. May God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up.
Say one more thing. I realize. want those people to understand that their mortgage and their conveyance, I cannot change. They were overcharged by the previous government. I cannot change that, but I can correct moving forward.
Thank you, Honorable.
No.
Uh, Honorable Member for Cat Island, we are taking communication by ministers. This matter is, in my estimation, a matter of life and death. I will permit questions, but I would prefer to do so after the member for Bamboo Town, who is the Minister of Health, make this communication. Yeah. The chair recognizes honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, is the custom when giving ministers communication, we go in the order of seniority in cabinet. So after PM speaks, I would have spoken, and then the Minister of Social Services, but we're going to allow the Minister for Youth, Sports and Culture to speak, and then I will be up after him to speak because he has he has an engagement that he needs to meet.
Thank you, honorable member. Order that the communication do lie on the table. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central Grand Bahama.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Government Leader, for allowing me to now make the presentation. Mr. Speaker, stand in the good graces of the people of Central Grand Bahama. And before I get into my minister's statement, with your indulgence, I would like to offer deep condolences to two individuals. And I'll start off with Deputy Prime Minister and a member for Carmichael and the recent loss of his father. This is personal to me that I remember 12 years ago when I lost my father. The DPM was on vacation in the far land with his father at the time, and he sent me a note. He said, I know it must be rough you're going through, but I will be in Freeport to sit with you and your family during the funeralization of your father to offer support, even if it meant cutting his vacation short. And like I said, he was on vacation with his father at the time. And through the form, when he came to the Bahamas, he jumped on the next plane to Freeport and sat with me and my family at the funeral. And I'll say to you, that was so powerful. It went a long way in helping us to get to Sorrows Valley. So I do appreciate that. And I understand that you and your father were extremely close, like in my case. So I know you're going through a lot. And I want to offer sincere condolences to you and to your family during this trying time. I also would like to offer condolences to the family of Miss Elizabeth Line. Her daughter, Kathy Line, is well known to all of us, and they'll be funeralizing her on May 1st. I'd also like to offer condolences to the family of Mabel Russell in Waterkeer, close cousin of mine who died at 104 last week. She will be also funeralized on May 1st. I also lost another cousin last night, Mr. Edmund Russell, this morning, in fact. So I'm offering condolences to all of those families as they prepare to lay their loved ones to rest. Now, let me get into the crux of my statement. I'm really here today. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to offer condolences to the President of the Senate, Madam President, on the loss of her brother yesterday. So again, I want to also offer condolences to her. Thank you. The Department of Sports, in collaboration with the National Sports Authority, have indeed been very busy. We have embarked on the transformative improvements to facilities on the family of islands. Grand Bahama, the home of perhaps a lot of the national, I want to say the majority of the nation's top elite athletes, has been the first to benefit in what is the first phase of the family island, a lot, improvement exercise. Mr. Speaker, for too long, the sporting fans which frequented the Grand Bahama Sports Complex in support of either our elite or future stars have been forced to endure the uncomfortable rough concrete seating. In the heat of the day, the concrete was hot, and in wet days, the area would remain damp or wet, and they have to, of course, sit in those areas. No longer will this be the case, as the first installation of proper seating at the track and field facility has now been completed, and already, Mr. Speaker, we have received numerous messages of appreciation for this initiative. Thank you. These strategic improvements will support the commitment of the government to stage the next edition of the Bahamas Games in 2023, which will coincide with the Bahamas' 50th anniversary of independence. Of course, the planning of this national event is extensive and will require a dedicated team focused on ensuring its ultimate success. To support these plans, my ministry has secured the services of one of the original architects of the game in the person of former Director of Sports, Mr. Martin Lundy, to serve as lead consultant. Mr. Speaker, our swimming athletes and community in Grand Bahama likewise have not been overlooked, as we delivered a brand new set of state-of-the-art starting blocks to the YMCA, and they are being installed as we speak. Undoubtedly, we will expect to continue to see more outstanding performances from our career and elite athletes from this facility, as we now have state-of-the-art touch 5. The timing system, we have touch 5. As the swimmers touch that 5, the time stops. So thank you to Mr. Algernon Cargill and his team from the Aquatic Foundation. They have been instrumental in ensuring that these blocks went to Grand Bahama for installation. The Bahamas is respected for its world-class status in the discipline of track and field, and over the years, multiple disciplines in the sporting arena. The mark of this country and its people will forever be engraved in the annals of world sports history as a small country that produces great people and does great things. Today, despite a setback caused by the dreaded COVID-19 pandemic, we are still moving forward, upward, onward, together. Mr. Speaker, in my remarks in this honorable house on the 24th of March 2021, I took the opportunity to acknowledge and congratulate the outstanding accomplishments of some of our top performing elite and collegiate athletes. Among those mentioned included Abaconia, not Abaco, who stepped out, Wonder Boy, Stephen Gardner, and Akan descendant Teslado Jazz Chisholm. I must again continue to mention these athletes for their outstanding performances, in addition to adding a few more names. Stephen Gardner, when I last spoke, opened the season with his fastest 200 meters ever in the time of 20.24. A world-leading time and meet record at that time. Here we are, just 3 weeks later, and Gardner posts another world-leading time of 44.71 seconds in the 400 event at the Tom Jones Memorial Limitation. Almost, imagine it's almost a second faster than the second place finisher. And I'm sure the leader of government understands the distance and the separation, 1 second in the race. Thank you. And I can say at this pace, absolutely, at this pace, if Stephen Gardner remains healthy, he appears to be unbeatable. So he's looking good for the Olympics today happening later this year. In volleyball, Eugene Stewart This Bahamian professional volleyball player has already made his presence known and impact felt, playing as middle blocker for his Romanian Championship League team, Arcada Galactica, the top league in the country, assisted him in leading the team to winning the Romanian National Championship on the 16th of April, 2021. Let's speak some more about Jazz Chisholm. Just as I confidently predicted in my communication back on the 24th of March, Jazz Chisholm's performance cemented his selection for the starting position as second baseman for the Miami Marlins. And that position was shown as he's performing even better than they expected. Since then, Bahamian Jazz Chisholm has just about become a household name. Jazz's performance has been nothing short of dynamic and exciting. Jazz has exhibited tremendous power and athleticism, stealing bases, scoring singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. Notably, on the 10th of April, Jazz blasted a home run into the upper deck of the arena off a 100-mile-per-hour fast pitch. Stunning. And this is a Cy Young award-winning pitcher, Jacob deGrom, and beating the New York Mets 3-0. Jazz now leads the Marlins team in hitting with a .324 hitting average. I will. Sure. Continue to watch this young man grow and shine. Another first, this is important, another first in Bahamian history was watching Jazz Chisholm and former MLB player, who was a former track athlete too, and now first base coach for the San Francisco Giants, Anton Richardson, compete against each other. History. This will be the first time that a Bahamian player and the first Bahamian MLB coach. We have a coach now in the MLB. Playing in the same league. And the good thing is, they recognize history. They played homage to American baseball legend Jackie Robinson. On that day, they wore number 42 on their jersey, the same number that Jackie Robinson wore. And I can tell you, other baseball players are in the pipeline, like Tanaris Thomas from Pelican Point, East Grand Bahama. Tevez Young, also Grand Bahamian. Ian Lewis, not my son. And of course, Lucius Fox. I'll speak briefly to track and field, Mr. Speaker. Devin Charlton, a hurdle sprinter at Purdue University, recently turned in a fast time of 12.84 seconds in the 100-meter hurdle, equaling the Olympic qualifying time and booking a ticket to Tokyo. In so doing, she joined another 100-meter hurdler, Adria Seymour, who also qualified earlier this season. These two athletes now comprise a growing list of now 8 Olympic A qualifiers for the Bahamas. I wish these ladies and all other Olympic qualifiers continued good health and preparation. Mr. Speaker, Kendrick Thompson, and this is important. I want us to really listen to this. Kendrick Thompson, a physical education major at the University of the Bahamas right here, set a new national record of 7,644 points in the decathlon event. And another Bahamian also competing in that event, broke the national record. This event, thank you. And this event is one which is not one of the most locally, it's not popular, but it's the most grueling, as these athletes have to endure 10 different events. These are, in my opinion, the world's greatest athletes. Absolutely. Further, Mr. Speaker, this demonstrates the strength of the athletics program in our own University of the Bahamas and should be a source of encouragement for more athletes. I'm encouraging you to consider joining the stay-at-home opportunity prior to going abroad. Mr. Speaker, even in golf, recently Cameron Riley, Grand Bahamian native and a soon-to-be graduate student of Florida A&M in mechanical engineering with summa cum laude grade in mechanical engineering this coming weekend. Yes, Cameron helped his team win the MEAC Middle East Atlantic Conference Golf Championship only yesterday. April 20th, 2021, and is currently the number 5 ranked minority player in America by the Advocate Professional Government Association. Donkrell Jones and a Russian club on Sunday, they three-peated as the EuroLeague champion in Istanbul, Turkey. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate. The Bahamas, we are a sports power then, now, and always will be. Best wishes to all of our athletes. Bahamas, sports strong. Bahamas, power strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Anderson. We are going to submit the questions after all this. And he's leaving. Okay. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Anderson.
Thank you, Speaker. I wanted to ask the Honorable Member and thank him for his update on the fantastic performance of our great Bahamian athletes. But there is an athlete in Kenya. His name is O'Neill Williams. He's from Engliston. And long distance runner, national record holder. And he is seeking to qualify for the Olympics. He has one more opportunity. He tried in Turkey and he had an injury. He has one more opportunity and he is bemoaning. And he left a voice note and it broke my heart because he spent tremendous time in Kenya, away from his country, his home, and his people to train for this. He is actually blazing a new trail because I don't think any Bahamian has really demonstrated this level of performance. And he's bemoaning that the support from the Bahamas government is little or non-existent. And I want to make a case for him because I think it would be a tragedy that he has one more opportunity to qualify and that he is not given the absolute fullest support by his country to make history on behalf of the Bahamian people. And I'm inviting you to look at that and to please support that athlete, O'Neill Williams.
Thank you very much. We've taken note of that. And yes, there's another athlete. Sorry, yes, I'm fully aware of O'Neill. And of course, just take the chair. I'm reviewing the file right now, and you see how best we can support him. And there's another athlete from Grand Bahama, Roy Booth, who's also have a similar request. So we are the director. We're well aware. Yes. And we have supported, and we will continue to. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication to lie on the table. Further statements and communication by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too offer my sincere condolences both to the Deputy Prime Minister on his loss and the President of the Senate on her loss as well. Mr. Speaker, some of the things I'm going to say in this communication may seem repetitive after the Prime Minister, but I seek to bring the technical position from the Ministry of Health as has been asked of me by the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, globally, the COVID-19 pandemic has reached an all-time high. COVID-19 cases and deaths, Mr. Speaker, globally continue to surge. The world is now seeing the highest rate of infection. I want to say that again, Mr. Speaker. The world is now seeing the highest rate of infection. The Director General, Mr. Tedros, in a press conference on Friday, the 16th of April, 2021, reported that around the world, cases and deaths are continuing to increase at a worrying rate. In fact, he continued, globally, the number of new cases per week has nearly doubled over the past 2 months. This is approaching the highest rate of infection that we would have seen so far during the pandemic. Some countries, Mr. Speaker, that had previously avoided widespread transmission are now seeing steep increased infections, end quote. This picture, Mr. Speaker, is also true for the region of the Americas and even closer to home, CARICOM member states. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas is no exception. Our data clearly shows that we are experiencing an increase, another surge. We are noticing a pattern that was seen at the beginning of the second wave. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we saw how COVID-19 cases slowed down during the second wave at the end of October, beginning of November 2020. We maintained a steady state after that for some months. However, by the end of February, beginning of March, the picture changed. And in recent weeks, there has been a threefold increase in cases, which is almost 300% from that time now. Mr. Speaker, New Providence continues to be the epicenter and the greatest contributor to the total COVID-19 burden in country. Of the approximately 1,901 new cases reported from the beginning of 2021 to now, of that number, 1,079 of these have been in New Providence. This translates, Mr. Speaker, to almost 60% of the new cases being allocated to that total from New Providence alone. Mr. Speaker, there has been a quieting, decreasing of new cases on islands such as Eleuthera, Abaco, and Grand Bahama compared to prior weeks. I want to say that again. Even though we have seen increases in cases in New Providence, there has been a decreasing of new cases on the islands such as Eleuthera, Abaco, and Grand Bahama compared to prior weeks. In Abaco, for example, 12.5 new cases on average each week was being reported for the last 2 months. Last week, Abaco reported one new case for the week. Mr. Speaker, this quieting, decreasing is in part due to the special mission into these islands. From the 30th of March to the 1st of April 2021, a health team was dispatched to Eleuthera to assess and intensify contact tracing activities there, with special emphasis on Harbor Island. Similarly, activity occurred on the islands of Abaco, and a team is currently in Grand Bahama. The team visiting Eleuthera completed the following tasks. They determined the number of COVID-19 positive cases, assessed whether there was a need for further widespread testing, evaluated the manpower on the ground to enforce policies and procedures, commenced the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccinations, and made recommendations for improvement in the ministry, which included the acquisition of additional staff to augment the existing staff complement on the island, and to encourage residents and visitors to adhere to the public health guidelines. The team also trained personnel on updated protocols for quarantining and isolation, and assisted with contact tracing activities and enforcing quarantine and isolation measures on Harbor Island in particular. Mr. Speaker, several metrics are used for tracking progress on the COVID-19 front, such as incident cases, COVID-19 hospitalization as a function of available COVID-19 beds, human resource capacity, and death, to name a few. Hospitalization rates among active cases have increased in country, as have ICU admissions. In the beginning of January, deaths were 171. From then to now, Mr. Speaker, there has been a 13.5% increase in COVID-19 deaths. Notably, from April 1st to the 10th, 2021, deaths remain constant at 189. We are all noticing that the COVID-19 deaths are slowly increasing, due in part to the increase in new deaths, result of COVID infection, but also due to the further reassessment of a number of deaths that were initially registered on our dashboard as under investigations. As a result, Mr. Speaker, deaths now stand today at 194. Mr. Speaker, the transmission rate and the positivity rate add further insights to our national understanding and epidemiological profile for COVID-19. The positivity rate, or how prevalent positive cases of the disease are when compared to the number of tests being done. Notwithstanding some existing limitations, the available data suggests an increase in the positivity rate for the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, the ministry strongly believes there to be an association between the uptick in ICU admissions and the level of COVID-19 severity presentation to our tertiary care institutions. Further investigations will shed light on whether the severity at presentation is linked to SARS-CoV-2 variants, which currently genomic screening by the National Reference Lab now suggests are circulating in the Bahamian population. Mr. Speaker, the National Reference Lab is now using the PCR-based approach to screen for variants of concern. This approach is a proxy of genomic sequencing that permits rapid monitoring of the spread of variants of concern localized in a community. Although this technology enables the identification of a genomic mutation deletions and is strongly indicative, it does not permit us to specify whether the mutation is specific to the known variants of concern, of which the Prime Minister would have mentioned earlier. Those variants of concern are the UK variant, the South African variant, the Brazilian variant, and now, most recently, the Indian variant. Our collaborations continue with laboratories outside of the Bahamas, our jurisdiction, such as CARFA, to specifically identify the variants of concern that are likely in circulation in the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, the testing materials for the in-country variant screening were provided to us by PAHO and received at the National Reference Laboratory a little over a week ago. We commend the forward thinking of the laboratory director, the daughter of the member for Engliston, Dr. Indira Martin. The NRL completed screening of some 120 COVID-19 positive samples collected from the 13th of March to the 17th of April, 2021. From the analysis of these 120 samples, the National Reference Lab was able to make the following conclusions. There has been a weekly steady increase in the percentage of samples carrying the characteristic mutation present in all three of the variants. In the week of the 13th to the 19th of March, 2021, approximately 20% of the COVID-19 positive samples screened contained the variant mutation. That's at the beginning of March. And during the most recent week, the analysis from the 11th to the 17th of April, last week, 2021, an alarming 80% of the sample screen, positive samples, contain the variant mutation. Mr. Speaker, this trend in the data indicates that one or more variants of concern entered the Bahamas, likely sometime in early March. Further, the variants have rapidly come to dominate our COVID-19 infections in country. We already know from our previous data screening from the reference laboratory in Brazil, there was no evidence of variants in the samples up to November 2020. However, Mr. Speaker, we await the sequencing results of the samples we sent to CARPA in mid-March. These results will assist to confirm our proxy results from the PCR screen and give us more detailed information on which strains are present in the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, as it stands today, the national COVID-19 report for the Bahamas is as follows. On Tuesday, yesterday, 20th of April, 2021, there were 68 newly confirmed cases of COVID-19. Up, Mr. Speaker, up from the 9 cases reported on Monday, the 19th of April. This brings the total number of confirmed cases in the Bahamas to 9,868. From our latest data, there are 9 moderately ill COVID-19 patients hospitalized in the Grand Bahama healthcare system. There are no patients currently in intensive care in Grand Bahama. In New Providence, there are 18 hospitalized COVID-19 patients at Doctors Hospital. 15 are moderately ill, and 3 are currently in the intensive care unit. There are 6 moderately ill COVID-19 patients being treated at the South Beach Acute Care and Referral Center. At Princess Margaret Hospital, there are 18 moderately ill patients with COVID-19. There are no patients in the ICU at PMH at this time. In all, Mr. Speaker, there are 464 active cases of COVID-19 in the Bahamas. 81 persons have been recently classified as recovered from COVID-19, and this brings the total number of recoveries in country to 9,140 for a recovery rate of 93.6%. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, there were no deaths confirmed yesterday. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 deaths, as previously stated, now stands at 194. Mr. Speaker, 26 deaths remain under investigation. Mr. Speaker, one COVID-19 death to us in the Ministry of Health, as I have said previously, is still one too many. We continue to pray for the families in the Bahamas who have lost loved ones to this persistent plague. This unrelenting COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Speaker, the Lord knows I pray, and I pray it comes to an end very, very, very soon for my people. Mr. Speaker, a total of 83,000, this is the leader of the opposition, a total of 83,288 RT-PCR tests have been carried out for COVID-19 in country. 575 tests were performed just yesterday, with 68 positive and 494 negative. 13 of those tests were repeats to determine recoveries. There were no inconclusive test results of note. Mr. Speaker, unknown case location designation has been significantly decreased from a high of 382, now down to just 35 due to a data cleaning exercise recently completed and reported yesterday. Mr. Speaker, we continue to progress. Mr. Speaker, please let it be known to all and sundry that as we were able, and I want to say it again, Mr. Speaker, please let it be known to all and sundry that as we were able to deploy an effective strategy, this administration able to deploy an effective strategy of testing, tracing, isolation, and treatment to gain control of our circumstance and get us to that steady state after the second wave, we are poised, positioned, prepared, and executing that strategy to do the same with this increase. Mr. Speaker, regarding the COVID-19 testing capacity, we have established robust in-country testing platforms across the public and private sectors. The National Reference Laboratory conducts RT-PCR COVID-19 testing and is optimizing all of its reagents and testing supplies. At the Princess Margaret Hospital, there are multiple technology testing platforms. We have the Gene Expert machine, we have the Panther machine, and the newly donated BioFire COVID-19 RT-PCR testing equipment that was donated to us from the United States. In Grand Bahama Health Services, we have the Gene Expert machine for RT-PCR tests. Mr. Speaker, the private sector capacity has also been significantly augmented since the first and second wave for both RT-PCR and rapid antigen testing. Mr. Speaker, in the Bahamas, we have in a month some approximately nearly 70,000 rapid antigen tests taking place within the country. Mr. Speaker, in regards to our quarantine isolation sites, we have reinstated our contractual agreement with the facility, and the facility is currently functional and functioning. Mr. Speaker, we have adequate in-country bed capacity. The Ministry of Health, government, stands ready to cope with the COVID-19 hospitalization in country, having expanded our bed capacity significantly during our second wave experience. Doctors Hospital System, in Doctors Hospital System, we have 25 beds at Doctors Hospital West. There's an additional 3 beds at Doctors Hospital East and 1 IC unit there. The Princess Margaret has 8 beds in the Legacy Isolation Unit, 30 beds at the Special Pathogens Unit, and the private ward at PMH can be expanded for additional space to house COVID-19 patients. On Grand Bahama, currently, there are a total of 23 beds available for COVID-19 patients. 16 beds at the Cancer Association of the Bahamas, and 7 beds at the Infectious Disease Center. South Beach Acute Care and Referral Center has a 10-bed capacity with a flexible expansion that can accommodate another 16 beds. Mr. Speaker, in regards to our personal protective equipment supply and the questions thereto, I want to inform the public that the Supplies Management Agency is fully stocked to cover masks, gloves, gowns, shoe covers, and full overalls, etc., as well as additional equipment and supplies for a sustained response by the Ministry of Health while protecting our health workers. Mr. Speaker, in spite of readiness, however, in spite of all of this readiness, as the Prime Minister also would have reiterated earlier, we must continue to adhere to the public health precautions to break the chains of transmission of the virus. Mr. Speaker, we can ill afford an exponential increase in the number of COVID-19 cases and hospitalization in our country. Mr. Speaker, ongoing surveillance and monitoring has and continues to be essential in our COVID-19 response. Increasing cases result in increasing contact. Lessons learned from the second wave has informed early recognition of the need to ramp up early. Augmenting contact tracing is well on the way. Trained agents from the National Health Insurance Agency have been reinstated as of Monday, the 19th, 2021. These agents joined already reinstated agents from the Ministry of Education, Treasury, and other agencies of the government. Further augmentation is anticipated, drawing from the pool of over 100 trained agents that we utilized in the second wave, and newly trained, ready to hire agents. Mr. Speaker, the engine of our response to COVID-19 relies heavily on our healthcare workers. As we continue to augment our response, more and more is required of our healthcare workforce. But Mr. Speaker, we do have a challenge. Our nursing personnel is depleting. Mr. Speaker, we are losing many of them to hospitals in the United States. We are treating them as best as we can. We are treating them good. But it's hard to compete. It's hard to compete when someone is offered close to $100,000 for a job, okay? It's hard to compete. The member for Eglinton is aware. I take this opportunity to make a clarion call to all nurses. I take this opportunity to make a clarion call to all nurses in the community to come forward to assist. We need your help, and we have appreciated your help and will continue to do so. Mr. Speaker, protocols and policies alone cannot get us out of this. I want to say it again. Protocols and policy alone cannot get us out of this. It is what you and I practice from day to day that will. I would like to remind the Bahamian public that the virus travels with people, and as we continue to adhere to public health measures and emergency orders, we decrease opportunity for the virus to spread. We in the Ministry of Health, and as the Prime Minister did earlier, we now renew our earlier plea for Bahamians to continue to wear your mask, sanitize hands frequently, avoid large gatherings, and adhere to physical distancing when out and about. Mr. Speaker, we reiterate the proven strategy to combat COVID-19 pandemic is adhering to the public health measures, testing, isolation, trace, and treat. But Mr. Speaker, vaccination is a critical element in controlling the spread of COVID-19 and bringing an end to this pandemic. And as we all know, Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 vaccinations are now available in country. Mr. Speaker, the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine in the Bahamas has begun on the 14th of March. And since then, Mr. Speaker, we have vaccinated 21,907 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine has been administered at vaccination sites and by the mobile units across New Providence, Grand Bahama, Eleuthera, and Abaco. Some 16,930 doses have been administered on New Providence, with 3,512 doses on Grand Bahama, 832 on Abaco, and 638 on Eleuthera. During the 7 days of vaccine distribution from the 9th to the 16th of April, the team administered some 9,546 doses of COVID-19 vaccine for an average of 1,364 doses per day. This week, Mr. Speaker, more than 4,000 appointments are offered to the public via the vax.gov.bs portal. Appointments are available at the Kendall G. Isaac National Gymnasium, the Laihola Hall, Pilgrim Baptist Church, Church of God of Prophecy, and St. Anselm's Church starting Thursday. Most sites are open at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Kendall G. Isaac Gym site is open from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Vaccination centers were initially operating Monday to Saturday. But as we have expanded the sites, Mr. Speaker, the schedule has changed to Monday to Friday. Mobile units are also being used to reach resident facilities and the homebound with physical disabilities. Mr. Speaker, so far, the Bahamas has received a total of 53,600 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. 20,000 doses was a gift from the government of India, and 33,600 doses were received through the COVAX facility with the assistance of the Pan American Health Organization. Continuing with PAHO, the Bahamas is scheduled to receive an additional 67,200 vaccines through the COVAX facility. We are pleased to report that the Bahamas has been informed by PAHO that it will receive the second tranche of AstraZeneca vaccine through the COVAX facility before the end of May. Mr. Speaker, finally, preparations are underway for the rollout of the vaccine program in all of our family islands, as was stated by the Prime Minister and Dr. Dalregis yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I do want to remind the public that while their vaccines are being rolled out in the family islands, that vaccination centers on New Providence and Grand Bahama will remain open during the family island rollout as they have been. Mr. Speaker, the AstraZeneca vaccine, as we know, is a 2-dose regimen. The administration, and I want to say it again and reiterate this point, Mr. Speaker, the administration of the second dose of this vaccine will begin on the 10th of May, a very momentous day for us in this country. Currently, vaccinations are open to the following persons at this time in New Providence and Grand Bahama. The Prime Minister, Dr. Dalregis, would have already spoken to the requirements in the family islands for vaccinating everyone above the age of 18. But in New Providence and Grand Bahama, it is open to healthcare workers, persons 50 years of age and older, persons with disabilities, uniform branches, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Bahamas Departments of Corrections, Customs, Immigration, and the COVID-19 ambassador. It is open to teachers and staff of schools, homebound and physically challenged residents, individuals, students and athletes studying or competing abroad, coaches and other support, and hospitality workers, hotel and resort employees, public transportation workers, Linden Pinling International Airport workers, Nassau Airport Development Company, Nassau Cruise Port workers, the straw market, port and beach vendors, and tour operators. It is open to restaurant and retail workers, members of the clergy, and to accredited media, editors, reporters, anchors, photographers, and videographers. Mr. Speaker, this list is continually being updated and expanded by the National Consultative Committee, and others will soon, and very soon, be added to the list. I take the opportunity in this House to encourage, the Prime Minister also did earlier, every Bahamian to take the vaccine at the earliest opportunity when it becomes available for your group or subset of our population. Mr. Speaker, on another note, it is remarkable how persons find an opportunity to take advantage of the difficult circumstance that some of us find ourselves in. Police reports revealed that a 34-year-old woman was arraigned yesterday in the magistrate's court a few days ago on 80 counts of forgery and 80 counts of possession of a forged document. The woman was arraigned in connection with the recent trend in fraudulent COVID test results. We urge the public who are aware of such fraudulent test programs to report these actions, incidents to the police, as these fraudulent activities, Mr. Speaker, can cause lives and lead to irrevocable damage to our economic life. We also want to state, Mr. Speaker, that after folks would have received the second dose of the vaccine, that we're going to be on alert for fraudulent vaccination cards. As the Prime Minister has said, that once you're fully vaccinated, so beginning from the 10th of May, folks will be able to travel throughout the Family Islands without needing a test. And we know that some enterprising individuals may want to step forward and begin to try to offer fraudulent vaccination cards. The Prime Minister would have spoken to the issue of enforcement. We want to warn individuals not to proceed. The Ministry of Health wishes to advise that there's zero tolerance for such behavior and that those who persist will be prosecuted by the fullest extent of the law. The persons offering the forged document and the person receiving the same are both public health risks in the highest order to our society. As COVID-19 persons who are positive and acquire a fraudulent negative COVID-19 test result can spread COVID-19 throughout the community in seconds. Mr. Speaker, this will not be tolerated. Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister would have spoken earlier. There has been a more lax observance of the healthcare protocols by many of us here in the country. However, Mr. Speaker, we do owe the Bahamian public a debt of gratitude for continually adhering to the preventative measures during the first and second wave. It is because of their discipline we once brought down escalating COVID-19 cases to zero in the first wave and near zero in the second wave. We must remain steadfast to see those results again. Therefore, let us all remain vigilant and continue to demonstrate responsible behavior. Mr. Speaker, it is true no one was ever prepared for a disruption of life as we now know it. Yes, the pandemic has pushed us into maintaining social distancing to isolate ourselves from COVID-19. More than ever, we must remain connected via the internet to keep our activities afloat. It is challenging, but Sandeep Ralhan of Walmart Labs said, there is an amazing opportunity to unlearn, relearn, and test our capabilities and value systems. With this in mind, my fellow Bahamians, as the Apostle Paul said, we must continue to endure as good soldiers. The Apostle Paul further went on to say in another place, we must continue to endure, for in due season we will reap a reward if we faint not. And Mr. Speaker, we must remain focused as a people, and we will remain focused, to collectively bring COVID-19 to an end in the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, may the Lord of life, our God, bless you and continue to keep you. And may he bless and keep your family and the family of all Bahamians. And may God Almighty continue to bless and keep this great Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Ordered that the communication be brought up. Ordered that the document will lie on the table. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Cat Island.
Speaker, I just wish to thank the member for Kalani and Bamboo Town for their communication in respect to the COVID pandemic that we are experiencing. Just wanted to, got some information that come to my attention. I wanted to ask either one of them to answer. Am I correct that you said you have about 50,000 vaccines in place and expect another 67,000? Am I correct? That you have now about 53,000 thereabouts, and that you expect another 67 sometime down the road. Now, because, very often, whatever we have to say is characterized as being anti this and anti. Right? But for the record, and for the record of this house, I just want to name just two statements that was made by myself and my COVID task force. Because what is being said now, we know that the date is what we think. It's the 21st of April. And from on the 24th of January, I was warning about the B117 variant. This was from the UK. And on that date, it had been reported into 50 countries. I warned also about the 501Y B2 variant that is out of South Africa. That was then spreading in 23 countries. And also drew attention to the P1 variant, which was detected in Brazil. And I asked you all from then to get a hold of that, and understand what's happening and try to not be reactive as to the each day. Because no, that's upset to me. I didn't say you were. That's it comes off. Because this is from January 24th, and it's only today's the first time we're hearing any communication from the government about what the plans were. And I also, vaccine is being said, it's not the only answer. I think, yes. I think there's a race. The race is really between ensuring that we get vaccine, and while that, and we have what I call try to get as
many of our people, and if not all our people, vaccine, and that's the ratio between vaccinating and the spread. And that's where the ratio is and should be. And which brings me to this question. We're still waiting for vaccine when I am aware that 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 the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the AstraZeneca was offered to be brought in and offered to you from early January. And without having to wait for co-op. It was offered to you, right? No, it was offered.
Honorable member.
And you all
Honorable member for Kell Island, Rankin.
I'm asking the question. So if that's the case, and it's not unnecessary, I'm trying to, what I'm saying is, if the race is between vaccinating and the spread, and you had an offer to have vaccine brought in, the entity that offered it to them is today offering it to other countries in the Caribbean. And this is a Bahamian entity. And other countries are benefiting from their access, buying power to be provided vaccine, but yet our own government is rejecting them. The member for Freetown is aware of that.
Honorable member for Kell Island. Give the members an opportunity to respond. And
So I'm just
honorable member.
just inviting you to embrace these assistance, man. Because you're not being wasting now. You will not probably have this third wave, as I call it. If you,
Honorable member for
and I
Kell
just
Island.
like to, I lay on the table, Mr. Speaker, my statement
Order
to put to bed this question of what our intervention has been. Our fault has been constructive with recommendations and saying, look, here's what's coming. And I laid these two statements.
order that the
on the
document be
24th.
brought up.
Where we were talking about
Honorable member for Kell Island from Key in Salvador. This opportunity being provided is an opportunity for question or for clarification. It's not an opportunity for statement, and it's not an opportunity for allegation. So anyone else who may have
I raised the question.
any question must be guided by Rule 57, order that the document be brought up. Must be guided by Rule 57. Otherwise, or order that the documents do lie on the table. Otherwise, the chair would not be inclined to permit it to go any further. This is supposed to be a time where there's no controversy, and it should not be an opportunity to provoke a debate. We still have statements and communications. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
The Minister of Health was respond to the question on carbs. I just want to take this member of the question. I know. Yeah, we're in an era where, because of air-link different forms of, we're in an era where, because of air-link and different forms of transportation, it does not necessarily take the brain of Einstein to recognize that it's something to recognize in a particular country. There's a great possibility that it can be transported at a parts of the world. That's the no game. We also know that the virus so as to non-medical technology. The viruses, they may be made up of 10 different components. I'm trying to avoid the all different things. Yeah, they may be made up of, let's say, there are 6 of you there may comprise the virus. The virus is very intelligent, recognizing that as antidote is formed against the 6, which
they would do is discard one and inject another person there, and therefore antivirus variant is established. And then as soon as an antidote is established against that, they would reject another component. What I'm saying is this could be with us for life. And you will find that we would maybe be receiving yearly vaccine, maybe two years, like the flu. We don't know how often the change would occur, but we do know that the change will occur. And yes, we've had many individuals, but the minister speaks to this particular, many individuals who would have offer propositions in terms of sale of vaccine. However, a lot of them had not necessarily met the vehicle requirement at that time. And in addition to that, they must go through a sequence of investigation to ensure we maintain the safety level of the human populace. Because if it had ever gotten out that we had accepted a vaccine that had not been approved, that would have been a different story.
Chair recognizes honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Member for North Eleuthera wanted to ask a question, but just to respond to the leader of the opposition's quip that we needed to have been proactive rather than reactive. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that we have been extremely proactive in regards to variants in the country. The leader of the opposition would have said that he would have put out a statement in January, I think the 24th of January. The leader of the opposition would be aware, even from my statement today and prior statements and press conference from last year, that we actually sent out 54 samples, positive samples from last year, November, to the reference lab in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to be tested for variants. Because we did have a concern. We wanted to know what the existing status was in the country. And those tests came back, Mr. Speaker, that at that point in time, there were no variants in the country. We further, being proactive, acquired, with the help of the daughter, the member of Engliston, the leader of our national reference lab, and PAHO, we got specific reagents. Though the reagents would not be able, and a testing process, though that process would not tell us specifically which variant it is in country, it would tell us that the positive test that we see has a variant and is a variant. And we were working to get those reagents in country from last year. Mr. Speaker, we got them in recently. And I spoke to what we have done in that regard in being proactive to expose 120 positive samples to that process so that we would have been able to see. And we know, based on that process, that a variant possibly was introduced into the country at the beginning of March. So we've been extremely proactive. On the other side, Mr. Speaker, and on the proactive side too, Mr. Speaker, remember now, the variant is not in country. The only way the variant can come to the Bahamas is if someone either travels out of the Bahamas to a place where the variant is and brings it back, or some tourist who's coming in brings it. And what we did at the border, Mr. Speaker, is that we have applied that every person coming into the country has to present an RT-PCR test, fill out the travel visa before they come back, before they come in. And so, Mr. Speaker, we've been extremely proactive in seeking to maintain the gains that we would have received in country after having gone through the second wave. In regards to the vaccine, Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister would have spoken to, we've had a number of persons who would have approached us. I get a call almost every day about some person saying that they want to provide vaccine. The Ministry of Health is doing its due diligence, looking at these requests, Mr. Speaker, but the Bahamas government has a very firm policy. Vaccinations are voluntary, vaccinations are free, and we're not vaccinating anyone over the age of 18. I mean, under the age of 18. And also, too, Mr. Speaker, we have to be very concerned with expiration dates. We have to be concerned with the source. The Bahamas government has to make sure that what is being offered and what we agree to allow into the country is not going to adversely affect the Bahamian people. And could you imagine, Mr. Speaker, if we approved someone to bring in a vaccine and there's some adverse reaction, what that would mean for this program where we are seeking to encourage the Bahamian people to go out and get vaccinated. So we've been extremely responsible and responsive, Mr. Speaker, in looking at requests that individuals are making to us for vaccine. If the leader of the opposition knows of a reputable circumstance, I would ask him to present it, and we will seek to do our due diligence in that regard as well.
Honorable members, the chair recognizes the honorable member for North Eleuthera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the government for its efforts in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. But I just want to ask, as stated by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health, that the numbers are down with reference to COVID infections in North Eleuthera. And we have quite a few tourists that have been traversing our shores, so much so that a problem is being created on the mainland of Eleuthera because of the 10 o'clock curfew. So I would beg or humbly ask the relevant authority or the competent authority or the overall medical team to consider the possibility of an elevated curfew to possibly 12 p.m. We wish to stay safe. We wish to stay we wish to stay safe. We will adhere to the protocols, but it is creating a difficulty in that the amount of persons that are staying on the mainland, the problem that it's experienced with having to shut down at 10, your last sitting for dinner is 8 p.m. So we just want you to consider that. And then finally, I'm happy to hear of the various stations or availabilities to have the PCR tests administered. Prime Minister, Minister, the cost of these PCR tests have to be addressed. They're too costly. And I make this intervention mainly because a lot of our residents have to travel to Nassau for medical purposes. And in doing so, they're already faced with hardships. And to find the additional funding to travel there to see doctor makes it almost unbearable. I've had to partner with one of the local clinics to offset the cost, but I'm asking the government to use its influence, or even partnering with these labs or these testing facilities, so that we could reduce this price of sampling. Thank you.
You recognize the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you. Very empathize with the member and be assured that the government looks at everything globally and do what we can. But with respect to lifting the curfew, from a personal perspective, I wanted to lift the curfew on Abaco a week ago. However, I cannot allow my personal views to override the scientific data, and therefore I was forced to wait for the analysis to be completed and be driven by the analysis as opposed to my personal view. And the analysis is likewise going on in Eleuthera, and as soon as we receive such report, we will act according to the analytical data. Thank you.
There being no further questions, I recognize the honorable member for Southern Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I give thanks to Almighty God and the good people of Southern Shores for the opportunity to stand here today. Mr. Speaker, I'm here to say a few words on matters pertaining to my portfolio, but I beg your indulgence to join in with my colleagues to pay condolences to the good member for Carmichael and his family on the passing of his father. I can say that I knew his father as a member of St. Matthew's Parish, and I would have had an opportunity to be in a number of theatrical performances for the church. And in my last performance, I would have had the privilege of being in a play with the member's father. So I remember him well, and I know that the good member is still mourning the loss of his mother. And so on behalf of myself and my household, I want to say special condolences to him. Also, condolences to the President of the Senate on the passing of our brother. Condolences to the board of the Nazareth Center, to Archbishop Pinder and his team there on the passing of Mr. Basil Albright, who was a member of that board. I also want to say condolences, Mr. Speaker, to Ms. Bowe of Southern Shores on the recent passing of her daughter. Mr. Speaker, may all of their souls and the souls of the faithfully departed rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, I want to pay homage to Mr. and Mrs. Gibson and the board of REACH as they celebrate Autism Awareness Month under the theme, Be Kind, See the Person and Not the Label. Mr. Speaker, my ministry and the government has continued to support REACH and their endeavors because we value their contribution to the community of persons with autism, so much so that 2 years ago, with very little encouragement, the Prime Minister saw fit to authorize the increase of the subsistence to REACH by tenfold. And so I want to say to REACH that that level of commitment continues, and they have our continued support throughout all of their activities. Mr. Speaker, I want to focus a little more on National Child Protection Month because of the urgency of the subject matter. Mr. Speaker, under the theme, Child Abuse Prevention Begins with Us, our ministry, along with the Department of Social Services, in conjunction with the National Child Protection Council, SCAN, the Urban Renewal Unit, the police, and all of our NGO partners have been celebrating from the 1st of April and will continue to the 30th of April. The theme, Child Abuse Prevention Begins with Us, is timely, Mr. Speaker. The reason why I would like to bring this event to the attention of this honorable House is because COVID-19 has affected my ministry and all of us, including the global community, to the extent that last year we were unable to do so. But it was our intention, it is our intention to pick up where we left off, Mr. Speaker, by educating the community on child abuse prevention through our various activities in New Providence and throughout the family of Ireland. President Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children," end quote. These words are not just cause for reflection, but also, Mr. Speaker, a call to action. Mr. Speaker, child abuse prevention begins with all of us, because no longer can we sit by in complacency and say nothing, nor can we passionately raise our voices decrying the awful abuse against our children if we're not willing to convince ourselves that the change has to begin with us and that we must follow through with decisive action. Mr. Speaker, many persons are aware that child abuse is against the law, but that means nothing if we don't speak out against it. We must become involved by preventing and reporting it, Mr. Speaker. Child protection begins with us, one voice at a time, one action at a time. Mr. Speaker, we condone abuse when we know that a child is being neglected. Neglected due to lack of adequate supervision by a parent or guardian who requires the eldest child, a 10-year-old daughter, to collect her two younger siblings from school, ensure that they eat, clean the home, complete homework, and then prepare uniforms for the next day. We already know, Mr. Speaker, that the 10-year-old is going to face challenges because she will more than likely not get to bed before 10 p.m. and will wake up tired, resulting in her sleeping in class. Then comes report card day, where failing grades appear. Then the same 10-year-old is belittled and shamed in front of the schoolyard, in front of teachers and her fellow students. Mr. Speaker, we must speak out against this type of behavior. We condone abuse when children are allowed to go hungry, when they do not receive adequate health and dental care, when they're not being raised properly, either spiritually or socially, when they do not receive love and care that they deserve. A child deprived of food cannot ignore hunger pangs, nor can he or she learn what is being taught in school if he has a toothache or is running a fever. Yet, many are sent to school, Mr. Speaker, or to the nursery for teachers or caregivers to attend. To further underscore my point, Mr. Speaker, parents express surprise when they receive reports that their child, after years of silence and appearing to be the model child, begins acting out, even though the parents were never there to provide the proper care and guidance. Mr. Speaker, members of this honorable House are aware that gang involvement is encouraged or occurs because there is a need for a sense of acceptance and belonging, which a loving family should provide. Richard Evans informs us, and I quote, "Children will not remember you for the material things you provided, but for the feeling that you cherished them," end quote. Child abuse prevention will begin with us when we speak out against the physical abuse of children. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, many witness the anguished cries, but say nothing. They are aware of the slapping, the burns, the punching. They see the welts, the bruises, but view this action as the parent's right to treat their child in whatever manner they see fit. Moreover, they condone the physical punishment as the only effective means of discipline and feel that the more severe the punishment, the better and more effective it is. After all, some of them say, it made me a better person, and I didn't die. Mr. Speaker, child abuse prevention has to begin with us. If we know that a child is being sexually abused, either by a relative, a stranger, a church member, or anyone else for that matter, we dare not sit idly by and allow a child's life to be forever changed. We can stop the abuse with one word, Mr. Speaker, with one phone call to the Child Protection Unit hotlines, or by becoming involved, even if we are viewed as that interfering, nosy neighbor. Mr. Speaker, child abuse prevention begins with us when we speak out against verbal abuse, against child abandonment, and all forms of ill treatment against our children. Children have the right to be happy, to a life of love, nurturing, and protection. They should be allowed to play and engage in activities appropriate to their age. They should not be stifled, but allowed to express themselves in an open, respectful manner. Gone are the days, Mr. Speaker, when we say children are to be seen and not heard. The Bahamas is signatory to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Children have a right to speak. We have the responsibility to ensure that they value speaking the truth. They deserve to be cared for and given the dignity and respect of which they are worthy. Oliver Wendell Holmes tells us, and I quote, pretty much all the honest truth telling there is in the world is done by children, end quote. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to the day when there will be no reports of child abuse cases. Unfortunately, from January 2020 to February 2021, there has been at least 382 reports of various forms of child abuse. I take comfort in one aspect of that reporting, which is at least 116 of those cases have been reported through our hotlines, 397-2550, 422-2763, 322-2763. Mr. Speaker, besides the hotlines and the Child Protection Unit landlines, other forms of reporting can be made by simply walking in to a police station, by simply writing a referral to one of those agencies. Students can inform teachers or guidance counselors. Faith-based organizations can report their observations of abuse. Mr. Speaker, as minister responsible for wards of the state, I recently conducted a site visit on one of our child care facilities. I was talking with the residents and asked them to tell me if there was anything they would like to change about the circumstances of their accommodations. They were shy and had no answer for me at that time, Mr. Speaker, but I left specific instructions that if any of the residents asked for an audience with the minister, that I should be summoned immediately, because I appreciate and promote, Mr. Speaker, the right of the child to speak, the right of the child to be heard. Mr. Speaker, there's an unknown author who said, and I quote, children are 1/3 of our population, but all of our future. I think I need to say that again, Mr. Speaker. Children are 1/3 of our population, but all of our future. Mr. Speaker, I invite yourself and all of my honorable colleagues to join the ministry and all of our stakeholders as we celebrate the various activities for the Child Protection Month, to participate, to show support, not for me, Mr. Speaker, but for our children who make up all of our future. Mr. Speaker, as usual, we would have started off with the church service. We would have had a number of talk shows, distribution of child abuse flyers, town meetings. There had been a poem and essay competition. And I would have indicated earlier, Mr. Speaker, that our activities were not just New Providence centric, but throughout the Family Islands. And it gives me pleasure to report that in the SCAN poem competition, the 3 winners were all Family Island schools. First and second place were from San Salvador, and third place from the Beacon School in Grand Bahama. Mr. Speaker, in addition to proving that our efforts and activities are not just New Providence centric, the fact that the third place winner is from the Beacon School is also an indication that our activities are inclusive of persons with disabilities, because the Beacon School is a school for special needs children. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of other activities planned. There is one in particular that I want to highlight, and that is a pop-up festival that is being held in honor of Dr. Willamay Miller. Dr. Willamay Miller, Mr. Speaker, is the deceased mother of a very famous Darrell Miller. I found this out after the fact, and so I want to take the opportunity to send my condolences to Darrell and his family. His mother passed about 2, 3 months ago. But I always had a special affinity with Darrell Miller, and I couldn't understand why. But in reading his mother's bio and her contribution to the children of our nation, I see that he has come from very good stock. And I understand, Mr. Speaker, why I have that affinity for him. Mr. Speaker, his mother, better known, more affectionately known as Aunt May, had great love for our children. She was a Sunday school teacher, a child evangelist, a lecturer, and a national director of Child Evangelism Fellowship Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, she is an example of one of those unsung heroes whose life was dedicated to ensuring that our children were safe, that our children felt special. Her motto, Mr. Speaker, was every child love and value. Mr. Speaker, if we could have 1,000 more Aunt Mays in our community, our children will be in better hands. However, her loss leaves a legacy and an example for us to follow. Mr. Speaker, I would have indicated and emphasized that our activities were not New Providence centric. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize and acknowledge that our social workers throughout the archipelago would have been involved in some way, form, or fashion, continue to be involved giving advice to our children, giving our school-age children pep talks on how to remain safe. At the risk of getting in trouble for leaving some persons out, I want to recognize the work of Ms. Major, social worker in Exuma, the work of Ms. Woods King in San Salvador, and the work of Ms. Roll and Ms. Russell in Nagua. I'm aware that that grouping would have made a special effort to speak to all of the schools in their local communities. And I'm satisfied that as we are still in the month, others are still involved in and engaged in activities relative to child protection. Mr. Speaker, our children are all of our children. I would have told or heard the story, Mr. Speaker, of a father who lost his child at the hand of the child's friend. And at the funeral, the father stood and apologized to the family of the child who took the life of his child. And people thought he was grief-stricken and had gone crazy. But as he went on to explain, he said he had the means to help the other child evolve and succeed as he helped his child. But he focused only on his child. He then regretted that maybe had he helped that other child succeed, that other child would not have had the need to take the life of his child. I remind us all here present and all in the sound of my voice that our children are all of our children. Because as I quoted earlier, while they make up 1/3 of our population, they make up all of our future. And so I conclude, Mr. Speaker, with a quote from Alfie Kohn that says, if children feel safe, they can take risks, ask questions, make mistakes, learn to trust their feelings, and grow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member for Bamboo Town, one. Order that the document, the communication be brought up. Order that the communication do lie on the table. Further statements and communication by members. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Speaker, there are no further communications by ministers. Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the business of this House do continue beyond 1 p.m. today.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do extend beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many members are in favor will remain seated, those who oppose will stand. Business of this House will extend beyond the 1 p.m. hour. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Sudden
Yes,
Shore.
Mr. Speaker, in my exuberance to close, mindful of the time, I want to thank on behalf of the National Child Protection Council, the most honorable Prime Minister for his proclamation of the month of activities. I also want to thank the Governor General, His Excellency, for agreeing to be the patron for the month. And I also wish to thank the Office of the First Spouse, who agreed and participated or produced a public service announcement relative to child protection, not just for the month, but throughout the course of the year. And I'm grateful to all of our stakeholders. And I thank my excellent team at the ministry Department of Social Services, and Urban Renewal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable members, at this time I wish to extend our condolences on behalf of the chair as well as the deputy speaker who is out of jurisdiction to both Deputy Prime Minister, the member for Carmichael, on the passing of his father, and to the presiding officer of the Senate on the passing of her brother. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat and new writ. Presentations of petitions. Presentation of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills. Oh, my apologies. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Respect the first reading of bills. I beg leave to introduce and read for the first time a copy of the following: a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Is there a second? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. As many members that are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
For the first reading of bills, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following: a bill for an act to amend the External Insurance Act.
Is there a second? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the External Insurance. As many members that are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the External Insurance Act.
For the first reading of bills, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following: a bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act. As many members that are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act.
For the first reading of bill, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are no further first reading.
Second reading and committal of bill. Committee of the Whole House. Third reading and passing of bills. Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. Member statements. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central and South Abaco.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to briefly rise, as was mentioned by the Minister of Health. As of today, over 800 Abaconians have received their first dose of the vaccination. And I just felt it was incumbent upon me to rise and to thank the Minister of Health, his entire team at the Ministry of Health, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Rotary Club of Abaco, Idea Relief, and all the others who made the rollout on Abaco possible. And on behalf of the people of Abaco, I just want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all those who made the vaccination rollout possible, and looking forward to the second round of rollout when the time comes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Chair recognizes Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, several sessions ago, I raised the issue of an active bus driver that participated in the bid exercise to get the bus contract, was called by the superintendent, and according to him, the instructions say that he was awarded the contract, only to several hours later, he was recalled and told that he no longer got it. Now this seems to be now the pattern, because the act has now struck Cat Island. It's now struck Cat Island. Bus driver, I don't like calling, oh sorry, I don't want to call the name, but I will call the name. But it seems to be what's happening. You all are systematically denuding persons who hold bus contracts, who you have asked to participate in the bid. They've won the bid, and they were informed that they got it, and then later they were told. I'm telling you, I could read it. Just, I could read what the contractors just sent to me. I mean, no, Mr. Speaker, I am not the Speaker.
Honorable members.
Mr. Speaker. Listen, I spoke to. Listen, I'm not speaking here. Say, Mr. Speaker, the bus drivers in Cat Island, right? Michael Harris, Pat Roll, all of those who had a contract, they have bus. The contract's been taken away from them and awarded to other persons, despite the fact that they were told that they were getting the contract. Mr. Minister, I need to understand if you're going to take it from them because they're PLPs, you do that. But don't allow them to participate in the bid. Let them win the bid and then come back and tell them. What I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. No, Mr. Speaker. I have said many times. Right?
Honorable members, this is member statement. Actually, honorable member.
I'm talking about this is my constituency I'm talking about.
Yes.
Right? Where my constituents are being discriminated against, being deprived of their living, right? Deprived of their living, right? It's the process they've gone through. If you didn't want them to participate, then you don't allow them to participate. But having caused them to participate, giving them the legitimate expectation that the process is going to be fair, and then it's not fair, right? And that is what is happening, Mr. Speaker. So I just need an explanation from the minister, right? If PLPs are not going to be allowed to participate in the government's project, but let them know. I've said from day one, right? From day one, they've set a very dangerous precedent. A very dangerous precedent. Right, Mr. Speaker? Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the minister,
honorable member for North Andrews.
He feels it too. They know this. Speaker, see, one wrong don't make a right. And I don't participate in wrong to make wrong any right. So whatever they say it is, right? Whatever they think it might be. All I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, right? I've said particularly to the Prime Minister, there's some real precedents that's being set by them And I hope they understand what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, what do you expect any other to do when the shoe is on the other foot? I've said that, Mr. Speaker. I've said that.
Thank you, honorable member. I think you've made your point.
The Minister of Education could explain what is happening with the awards of contract in those particular institutions. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for South Beach.
Speaker, I think the honorable member Cat Island has raised this issue before, and I committed to him to look into it. Or I am now committing to him to look into it. But let me just say that there is a process of which he is very familiar, a process which was observed in this particular situation. And for the benefit of our people, they should know that the contractual period for the respective vendors came to an end in June 30th of 2020. Because of the circumstances, we invited those vendors to continue on, because as you know, we were in the pandemic, we were in lockdowns, public officers were at home and so on. And we engaged in the exercise, the tender exercise, in which the matter was, of course, eventually brought to the cabinet for its decision, and the cabinet made its decision. Now, this calling and calling back later to say that you, in fact, didn't receive after you had been notified that you did, in fact, receive, I would like to check that out. I believe that there might have been a particular member of or I'm advised that there might have been a member of the Ministry of Education who can assist me in making that understanding, and I will find out from him and I will advise the honorable member. But as far as I'm aware, sir, we have conducted the exercise very transparently and very openly in accordance with the rules, which are clearly stated on every document that is provided to any vendor who wishes to participate, and the decision is made by the Cabinet of the Bahamas.
Honorable members, there being no further member statement. Oh, my apologies, East Grand Bahama. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to express condolences to a number of residents of East Grand Bahama, starting with Mr. Phil Thomas, who was a former chief counselor for local government in East Grand Bahama. Phil was an excellent representative for his community and would have given unselfish service in defending the rights and the opportunities for the members of this particular part of the constituency. He was a bone fishing guide, a very successful bone fishing guide, and many international persons would have benefited from his expert professional skill, and he would have attracted some very notable names to the East End community to conduct or engage in our bountiful bonefish industry. So I want to recognize him and to say to his wife, Romelda, that certainly our thoughts and prayers are with her and the family. This is a family who suffered quite significantly, Mr. Speaker, in that they would have lost a significant number of family members in Hurricane Dorian, and a son previous to that through a boating accident. So they've had their period of trial and distress. And this, losing the patriarch now, is certainly a difficult period for them. And so we certainly want to pray God's comfort and guidance on them. I'd also like to pay respect to Elizabeth Lang and to her family, Reverend Ivan and Kathy and Lee and all the rest of them from Pelican Point. Miss Elizabeth, Deaconess Elizabeth, was a tremendous woman, very kind, very loving, very concerned, And I don't think there's anybody who's ever met her that would not have loved her. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. She will certainly be missed in the community, and certainly by me. She and her husband and their family are just personal friends who love tremendously. Just wonderful people. I'd also like to give condolences to the family of Miss Emily Bevins, who was funeralized, I think, 2 weeks ago. Again, a solid, salt of the earth kind of woman who always checked on me, make sure I was okay, and somebody who I certainly respect and will miss. Also, Mr. Wayne Hall. Wayne was one of those persons that was interested in agriculture. In fact, he and his partner had started an aquaculture program in Grand Bahama that really appeared to be doing very, very well in that they were not only engaged in tilapia fishing that they used as fertilizer for the aquaponics part of it, but they were actually producing greens for the hotels, and the hotels were open, by the container load. And it's interesting to see their operations. So he was very a cutting edge kind of behemoth. I first met him as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was involved in technology. And so Wayne has made his contribution, and certainly he will be missed in his community. It's a tremendous transformation I saw in him over the years as he made his move closer towards God and transition his life. A wonderful person again, and a contributor to Grand Bahama and to Abaco, which he moved to Abaco for a while. I'd also like to express condolences to the Deputy Prime Minister on the passing of his father, and to the President of the Senate on the passing of her brother. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the government of its commitment towards Crown land grants, particularly in the Family Islands. I think sometimes, Mr. Speaker, we tend to downplay or may not understand the importance of Crown land when it comes to the Family Islands. It is an empowerment tool for the Family Islanders. And I want us to remind us to treat it with the urgency and the respect that it deserves. Land is a significant issue in this country. We all know that we need land reform. We all know that we need to modernize the land registry. We all know that we need to get rid of the Quieting Titles Act or amend it significantly. However, Mr. Speaker, sometimes like I say, events can overtake us. But in the meantime, as the saying goes, the cows are dying while the grass is growing. And so I want to just remind the government of its commitment to the Bahamian people. We must reach the north at some point, and hopefully before this term expires. It is important to not only the home ownership. I heard last week about the development here in the province, but it's important to home ownership in the Family Islands, and it's also critically important to economic development in the Family Islands, because a lot of these persons are applying for land to engage in commercial activities that will benefit their communities and provide employment. And so I just again want to remind ourselves of our commitment in that regard. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I do want to remind the Disaster Recovery Agency of its commitment to provide the temporary homes for residents in my constituency, as far too many still are in need of some assistance. And so I just want again, on their behalf, remind us of them, that they exist, that there is need, and we do have a need within our power to provide some assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, there being no further member statement, I just wish to say to the people of the Nassau Village constituency that indeed your decision in May 2017, you did elect a very smart person. And I have the certificate and degrees in natural science, computer science, and law from tertiary level institutions that agree with that fact. I also would like to say that I have started a number of projects in the Nassau Village constituency with the aid of the capital grant. And I want to let all the vendors know who I'm still maybe having a balance with, owing a balance with, that as soon as my capital grant is released from the Ministry of Finance, you will be paid in the usual and normal fashion in the past. Until noon today, there has been no indication of a receipt, my receipt, on behalf of the constituents of Nassau Village of the capital grant, which has become my legitimate expectation of as a member of Parliament for the Nassau Village constituency, which I still am until the day of the dissolution of this Parliament. Now, the member for St. Barnabas,
I want mine too.
the member for St. Barnabas is fully aware that I have some projects going on the parks in my constituency. And I would like to complete those projects. And I would not like to believe, so I'm not making any allegation that there is any discrimination in this process. But I expect to find on my account today, sometime today, the capital grant for the people of the Nassau Village constituency. Because like I said earlier, I believe that I am a very smart person. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
I know it's not the rules, speak second time in member stations, but I did forget two things I wanted to do. One, I wanted to express condolences to the Strawn family on the passing of the Reverend and Mother Strawn, on the passing of their son Selwyn. This is their second loss in less than 6 months, as they lost another son. And Selwyn, I wanted to recognize because he was the emergency services manager in Grand Bahama. And he would have made a tremendous contribution to Grand Bahama during Dorian, when the emergency services were certainly tapped to its max. And he would have made a tremendous contribution during that time, and certainly would have provided stellar service to the community of Grand Bahama. He served for 18 years in that department, starting here in New Providence and moving to Grand Bahama. And certainly we want to express our condolences to the Sloan family on their loss, and to the Grand Bahama Health Services, who will now be without a tremendous resource. Selwyn was also responsible for disaster preparation in Grand Bahama, doing all the airport drills and all the rest of it. And so, again, a tremendous loss for the health services department in Grand Bahama. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to express congratulations to our colleague, Dr. Or soon-to-be Dr. Shannon Dawn Cartwright, who we learned today is going to be the recipient of an honorary doctorate from his alma mater. Certainly well-deserved, and we do want to express congratulations to him on that tremendous award. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. I'll join in the banging on the desk for that one. Appointment of select committees. Instruction to select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shore. Correction. Golden Isles. Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
I wish to renew all matters in the name of the government and Mr. Speaker. I also would like to put the House on notice that we will return at 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 28th of April, 2020.
Honorable members, it has been moved and second that the business of this House, correction, that this House adjourns to 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 28th of April. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those who oppose will stand. Final adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House adjourns until 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 28th of April, 2021.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the House adjourns to 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 28th of April, 2021. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those who oppose will stand. The House stands adjourned to 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 28th of April, 2021.